We're continuing Halacha Gimel, Perak Gimel, Halacha Gimel, the Dina Shel Beinani. What's the din of a Beinani? At the end of the Halacha, the Rambam writes that Beinani Toli v'Oimen ad Yom Kippur. A Beinani is Toli v'Oimen until Yom Kippur. The Halacha Mishnah asks the question: why doesn't he say that the din of a Beinani is L'chaim because of Rav Chesed? HaKadosh Baruch Hu tilts the scale because of his mercy, an attribute of much charity. And we learned in Rosh Hashanah Yudzayin on Beis 17b, Matik La Bechesed. And he answers that since in the 7 days he has to do tshuva, if he doesn't do tshuva, then that adds to the sins. And that lack of tshuva is what brings about misa, because it tilts the scale in the other direction. And so here he says in Rosh Hashanah 16a, and the Peirush HaMeir also adds that someone that does not do tshuva on these days, he actually transgresses on the positive commandment of returning to Hashem Elokecha, and therefore the majority is sins. So it would seem from the Rambam, he says merits. What is the action of tshuva is what causes him to be on his own to merit it rather than any other reason. He doesn't explain that the addition of mitzvahs is what causes it. And furthermore, the Peirush HaMeir says that it doesn't mean that it only hinges on tshuva, because other mitzvahs will also, if he does other mitzvahs during these 10 days, they will add to the scale of merits. But that the non-action of tshuva is considered a sin. Therefore, in Halacha Dalet, it says that because the din that people have a unique situation during the Ases Yemei Tshuva, they have to show that they are actively seeking forgiveness. Therefore, we can understand why no Gukol Yisrael, the Klal Yisrael made a special minhag during these days. It's not being hypocritical. It's just saying that this is a special time, since the scales are weighed and we have to figure that we're all half and half, to add tzedakah and do good deeds and do mitzvahs on Hashanah and Yom Kippur more than the rest of the year. Because on these days, that is when our sins and merits are counted. And we have to tip the scales. When he says, if he does tshuva, he's signed to life, he relies on what he says in Halacha Dalet, that many do special mitzvahs of tzedakah ma'asim tovim lachias kaf haschus. And the Rambam is citing the actual lotion of Peirush HaMeir, which he does very, very often. The Rama in Siman Tov Reish Beis paskins that you don't not mekadosh levon until Motzi Yom Kippur, even though some say after 3 days, others wait till 7 days, and Yom Kippur is the 10th day. And the Gemara explains that a person has to be mekadosh levona when he is dressed. That's why you do it Motzei Shabbos also. When after Shabbos you're dressed and you're besimcha. But the Gemara is of the opinion that no, we don't agree with the Ramah that you should wait till after Yom Kippur, but rather one should perform another mitzvah before Yom Kippur, which is Kiddush Levana, in order to add to his merits. Now, Kiddush Levana is not actually a mitzvah in and of itself of deraisa, but it's an action of a good deed, and it has the ability to bring the scale to the tilt in the direction of merit. It does not only tshuva. The Gemara also explains that we say because Veinu during these 10 days, because somebody was written Rosh Hashanah Lamisa, and he did tshuva during the 10 days, then his previous edict is torn up, because tshuva has the ability to tear up previous dinim, as it says in Rosh Hashanah, and therefore what he adds mitzvahs, like the Beres Yitzchak says, would not necessarily tear up what happened on Rosh Hashanah, whereas tshuva will. And we'll turn the page. The Mishnah Lamelach cites Rosh Hashanah 16a, that 4 times in the year the world is judged. On Pesach for wheat, on Shavuos for fruits, and on Rosh Hashanah everyone passes before him kivnei moed. And it says also sukkahs on water. Shenema, it says hayotzi yachad libam, somebody who creates togetherness with one togetherness, their hearts, who understands all of their actions at one time. And as I mentioned earlier, a chag, one is judged, which is chag here refers to sukkahs, one is judged for water. So the Tosfos asks a question from what we find in Brachos 18b, that someone's wife, this happens very rarely, a wife caused him to be upset on Erev Rosh Hashanah, and he didn't want to go home at night, so he went to sleep in the Beis HaKvoros, in the graveyard, and he heard two spirits who were talking to each other, but they heard that everyone who seeds in the first quarter of seeding, and everything will be lost. So, and therefore he didn't do so, and his was left over. So we see the Gzar Din on wheat is on Rosh Hashanah, not on Pesach. How can you say it's on Pesach? The answer that on Rosh Hashanah they remind in Shamayim the din that was mentioned on the previous Pesach. That's what he heard about. So Meshon Lamelech asks, why do we have to mention on Rosh Hashanah what was already decided on Pesach? And he explains, like the Ran does as well, that the whole world is judged on Pesach on Tvua, on Shavuos on fruit, on Sukkot on water. On Rosh Hashanah, everyone passes before him individually, and therefore he gets his portion in these items. That's what the Mishnah means, that then you can get your chelik in it, and therefore you can have a portion that's greater than someone else's. Thus we find that in addition to what they judge on Rosh Hashanah, everyone according to his deeds, they also judge what he will receive from fruits and the work of his hands. And they judge the fruit of the trees on Atzeres and the water on Chag. He receives his portion from those things. And therefore, Rosh Hashanah, we mentioned Shemayim, those laws, those decisions that were made on Pesach. But the person is judged on Rosh Hashanah according to his deeds, everything that will take place for him in that year as well, and on the fruits and the wheat. And we have to know that what was judged on the entire world, on shvut, on wheat, water. In other words, to know his portion. So it has to be mentioned, well, there's so much and so much, and the people took so much and so much, therefore what's left is for this person. Tosfos adds that the Gemara on Brochos is like Rabbi Yehuda. Rosh Hashanah 16a. Everyone is judged on Rosh Hashanah, and the decision is signed, everyone at his time. Pesach is when it's signed for wheat, and that Chosid heard on Rosh Hashanah what they were discussing about wheat, and even though even was decided on Pesach, so the Mishnah Melech asked the question on Rosh Hashanah, it's Mavua, that the Mishnah is not like Rameya, not like Rabbi Yehuda, and therefore, why should the Gemara in Brochos talk only according to Rabbi Yehuda and not like Rameya, that says that everything is judged only on Rosh Hashanah and everything is decided is sealed on Yom Kippur? And he explains that Tosfos did not want to establish the Gemara Rameya because according to him, the Rosh Hashanah isn't what makes the decision. That it only begins on Rosh Hashanah and it only ends on Yom Kippur. That it could be that till Yom Kippur will do Tshuva, and therefore what happened on Rosh Hashanah will be nullified, and seeding and harvesting is totally in Yom Kippur. Why did they say on Rosh Hashanah what's going to be the rule of Tshuva? There would be a problem. according to Meir, because nothing is decided until Yom Kippur. But according to Yehuda, that it really starts off in Rosh Hashanah. There's an initial judgment. It's just that the final judgment is made on Pesach. We have to understand why they then mention it on Rosh Hashanah if the time of seeding is on before Pesach, and therefore in Shemayim they said first of all what the Gzar Din was on Tvur, on Pesach, because we have to know how the world, how to decide what every individual will receive in the world from that which was preordained would be the amount collected in that world, even before the Gzar Din, which takes place only later. Therefore, Taisa says the Gemara is talking according to Rabbi Yehuda, and not according to Rabbi Meir, who says everything is decided on Yom Kippur. And we've completed Halacha Daled, Gimel, and we'll go to Halacha Daled.